We're joined right now by the president of the Canadian Cattle Association. It is Nathan Phinney. Hey, Nathan, how's it going?
Good, Sean. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing fantastic. Hey, before we get into some of the issues and stuff, how are things on the ranch there in New Brunswick?
Things are looking good. I know last year was a very wet, kind of discouraging year, but crops look good and weird for us to say we can use a little rain, so I think it's coming and yeah, much better than last year. A lot of people are optimistic.
Oh, good to hear. That's awesome. Okay, so you were in Whitehorse for the FPT meeting, representing, of course, the Canadian Cattle Association. From your perspective, what were the outcomes of that meeting?
Yeah, actually, Jen and Tyler were at FPT and kept me up to date abroad of what was going on. And you know, it's one thing that we did hear at the end of the meeting was there's a lot of provinces that are supporting some of the proposed changes on some risk management pieces that we've been pushing for, and so hopefully we can continue to get the federal government to push on that. And the other big piece there was a lot of conversation around was the upcoming CUSMA agreement. The provincial ministers weighed in heavily on that as well as the federal minister did. And, we're watching very closely of what's going on south of the border of us. And, there is reasons to stay on top of this file for sure.
Yeah, so what from a Kuzma USMCA perspective, what's the push? Just to be aware that there potentially is some I guess renegotiations or review in as of July of 2026, or what exactly do you want the provinces and the feds to be doing?
I think we need to continue to work on our relationship building with all different groups and parties, whether it be governing states, senators, members of Congress. I think, when we get into these negotiations, and we've heard, Trump's platform of what he's talking about, tariff rates possibly going forward, and then we had the Democrats kind of putting in a voluntary product to U.S. and some of their trade policy of Buy America. We are the U.S. is our biggest trading partner. So, I think it's very valuable to get ahead of this cart per se and make sure that these relationships are fundamentally sound and hopefully we can have a smooth transition. And ultimately our goal is to ensure that beef remains able to move in back and forth between our two states without any political interference.
If, say, a 10% tariff was applied to Canadian product, Canadian animals, just, anything coming from Canada going south, what impact would that have on the Canadian beef industry?
I mean, it'd be catastrophic to be quite frank. I mean, 70% of our trade is with the U.S. So, it's part of our goal to ensure that doesn't fall into cattle and beef production. And, we're going to really focus on that in the next year and a half to ensure that the points are well positioned why we have the world's largest integrated live cattle system in North America. And, when we're tasked to feed the world and be an economic driver, which we are, we need to continue to ensure that we don't have barriers in place that point one product over the other.
Nathan, you mentioned business risk management programs. Where are we at with some of the work that CCA has been doing around agri-stability and trying to make it a little bit more conducive to livestock producers?
Yeah, I mean, CCA has worked hard on this file, and some of the other provincial partners have also done a lot of work on this as well. So I have to give a shout out to Alberta, who is tasked on looking at some of the agri stability changes. One of our big asks is to look at the cap uh, on agri stability, and it's been a cap that's been in place since agri stability has been formed. And when we look at 15, 20 years of this program being ran and the cap has remained the same, well, we've had inflationary costs and rising costs. And, to be honest with you, Sean, the cap isn't even keeping up with inflation costs. So, when we don't see any movement on that, the program becomes pretty inadequate to cover off the risk of the farmer and rancher when these caps are in place. So that's one area that we've been working on. And obviously there's, some areas that have been worked on, different sectors within the beef industry that the program seems to work better for and not so good for others. So all we're asking for is equitable programs across agriculture and across no matter what sector that you're in, so that they go to work. And that's what our producers need to rely on to make sure that, if there is a day where markets collapse or borders close, that we have adequate coverage.
Nathan, what is the cap that is on the program?
So the cap's always been at 3 million, and we're asking for 15 million. And we've heard the argument, well, it's only there to protect the big guys. Well, to be honest with you, the cap at 15 million isn't even really going to cover the losses that they have. So really, this movement really does protect the small and medium farm size. And if we don't have that movement, and you calculate back, where inflation has gone since the 3 million cap was put in place, 15 is a very modest ask to get us kind of in line where it should be to today's pricing.
Yeah, well, you know what I was talking to a cattle feeder on Friday night, and you can talk to any cattle feeder, and all they talk about is how the cost of running that operation has substantially increased. That there should be some sort of acknowledgement of that when it comes to the business risk management programs. They should be falling, that trend should fall in line with each other. It seems odd that there's no sort of, even like you mentioned, like inflation, proper inflation adjustment.
Yeah, and again, we got really good feedback coming at FPT from the provincial ag ministers. And I think the ball's going to land in the Fed's court to move on this. And you know, realistically, we can't wait for another 5-year cap cycle for this change to come in place. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and it can be done, I think in a timely fashion sooner rather than later. Because if we wait another, well, 4 years, 5 years into a new cap phase, it's going to put us that much further behind.
CBIC's coming up. The Canadian Beef Industry Conference is happening in Saskatoon in August. I'm sure you're going to be there. I'm going to be there. We're doing a live broadcast of Real Ag Radio at the event again. Looking forward to it. Great lineup at CBIC this year.
Yeah, no, it's exciting to go to Saskatchewan. First time it's been hosted there, and I think everybody from our side of CCA is looking forward to getting out to Saskatoon. And I think other than the past month and a half of some really hot weather and some unfortunate situations with fires in the west, and our thoughts are with everybody that's being affected by those. I think when we were out west kind of touring around there is a little bit of smile and optimism on producers' faces. We're coming out of some drought areas. Back in, crops look pretty good in a lot of areas, and cattle prices are strong. So going into this industry conference, we're looking at growing our industry, growing our cow numbers back to where we think they need to be, and set this industry up for a sustainable future.
Yeah, it's always fun to go to a beef meeting where people got a little bit of pep in their step due to some profitability. It's really good to see. And you mentioned those cow numbers. That's something that has been quite elusive for the Canadian industry in their in the intent to want to grow the supply on the cow calf side. Mother Nature plays a role in that, but so do prices, and the prices are definitely giving strong indications for producers.
Yeah, that's where we've always kind of missed our cycle when we did have strong prices. Was Mother Nature had other plans, for us, and you know, I think we would have seen some retention in the last few years had Mother Nature cooperated, because prices were on an incline. And, I think when we look at the cattle cycle where we are today and hopefully where it looks like it's going to go into the future, with some timely rains and some decent moisture amounts across the country, I think, there is time to build back. And this will be the first time that we've kind of had a rebuild in a couple of decades. So, you know, hopefully we can continue to move the needle in the right direction, and Mother Nature continues to cooperate, and this strong market holds. And there's nothing that's any better for the Canadian landscape than cattle on it.
Yeah, the last thing I want to wrap up with, there was an NCBA summer meeting that took place as it does every year. Anything come out of that from a Canadian perspective?
They're pretty much business meetings down there, and get a lot of their policies kind of done. Nothing that really stood out hard on us. Animal disease, FMD is still big on everybody's mind to ensure that we're adequately ready for that if it ever does rear its ugly head, and make sure that there's minimal damage to our industries. Collaboration, the voluntary party DUS is brought up, but we all know where that is, and it's kind of a monitoring phase now to see if there is discrepancy. And we position that we are ready to do what we need to do for our producers if there is any sort of discriminatory actions on Canadian cattle. So, I must say our relationship with NCBA is kind of like a brother, sister, two brothers, two sisters, however you want to word it. We worked extremely well together on a number of fronts, and we're looking forward for them and CNOG coming up to our industry conference in Saskatoon.
Great stuff. Well, speaking of Saskatoon, as we were talking about the Canadian Beef Industry Conference, it is in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan from August 19th through the 22nd. There's networking, keynotes, breakouts, learn how to increase profits, manage rangeland, and navigate trends. Visit CanadianBeefIndustryConference.com for full details and to register. And you can say hello to Nathan and I in person. Hey, Nathan, thanks a lot for joining us here today.
Thanks, Sean. Have a good day.